Hello everybody and welcome back to Tech Art for All. I'm really happy to see that you guys are back to check out some more videos. Once in a while I'll do a video where, you know, I'll go make shorter videos where I go through some details that I think are getting pretty important for the kind of things that we're doing inside of Maya. So in this case I want to do a really quick video for some interesting things about the script editor, and some techniques or practices that you might want to use for scripting. There's a lot of different options, so I leave it up to you to decide what you're most comfortable with. A lot of times you'll work at a studio where they recommend a very specific type of style of writing the code in order for everybody to be able to read your code, but hopefully you have, in this case, the freedom to kind of learn what your preference is. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is, you know, I think you've noticed that, in, let me switch to Maya really quick. Hopefully you noticed that in the script editor inside of Maya, once you create a new line, you'll start seeing these integers or line numbers show up inside of the script. And this is very useful for um, identifying specific lines of code. So if you have an error, the my error will usually tell you which line the error is happening on. So it's very easy to identify or find the error. There is one kind of gotcha moment specifically inside of Maya, and that is um, actually I will show you an example of it. So for example, if I go to line 1 and I say print um, Maya, and I go to line 2 and I say print Maya, but I forget the second kind of ending quote. So if I select the first line and I run it, everything works. Okay, it printed Maya. If I select both of them, oh, okay, so all of a sudden it's telling me that line 2, and this is actually point 13, which tells me which spot on that line. So it's the 13th character where it says that there's an unterminated string, right? So the one thing to watch out for is that when you select both of them, because my selection starts on line 1, this line number reporting gets reported correctly. But if I select just this line, it will tell me that the error is on line 1. Well, you might assume, okay, let me look at line 1. Oh, everything seems fine. But you just got to remember that when you're doing selections that don't start at the beginning, it will be offset by where you select. So once again, if I have an error, let's say I have an error on line 3. If I select all of it, it will tell me line 3. If I only select these two, the first line that's selected is going to be considered line 1, and the second line selected will be considered line 2, even though on the left here it says 1, 2, 3. So instead of 2 and 3, due to my selection, it's going to be considered 1, 2. So if I run this, it'll tell me, hey, the error is on line 2. Just be really aware of that. The other thing I wanted to discuss is variable naming. There are some keywords uh, that you cannot use to name variables. I would suggest Googling that because I don't remember the keywords off the top of my head. But if you ever run into a situation where you want to name a keyword, a variable, for example, source, right? If I go source, I believe that source is a keyword that you can't name a variable. Let's see, make it 1. Let's see what happens if I do that. Oh, that actually worked. But anyway, that's not a good example. I don't have an example off the top of my head, but just be aware that there are keywords that will cause problems if you use them as variables. What else? Like I said, there's color coding, so whatever is red is a comment, whatever is green is a variable type. So it makes it easier for your eye to catch the syntax and the code that's in front of you to kind of read it. Because if everything was gray, it would be just kind of washed out, and it would be harder to read your code or somebody else's code. The other thing I want to talk about is naming variables. As far as different styles of naming the variables, I like to use what's called a camel case. And so if I have a variable name that's made up of several words, for example, this is an int. As you can see that every new word, so the first word starts out with all lowercase characters. Every new word begins with a capital character. Let's say, I can also say friends names. So I hope it's very clear that friends is all lowercase, and then every new word, if I want to put list, begins with a capital character. That's called a camel case. Other people, prefer to use underscores. You can't use spaces, but you can use underscores. Friends names. That's also valid. So once again, it's something that's a preference or something that, if you're working on a team, they will suggest, hey, we prefer camel case or this other naming convention. The other thing that's interesting about scripting is, clear that, is tabbing. Once we start writing, actual lines of code, there's going to be some instances where you need to indent certain parts of the code. So in the case of Mel, it's more for readability than actual functionality, but in other languages like Python, indenting or tabbing is actually necessary to make the code work correctly or work at all. A lot of times if you don't tab certain parts of the code, you'll get an error. So just to let you know, in the script editor, when you hit tab, the little blinky line, whatever it's called, it moves over and it looks like it tabbed, but it's actually adding 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces. In different editors, there might be a way to change the tabbing to an actual tab inside of Maya. I haven't done so yet, so if you find a way to do that, please let me know. That would be super handy. I personally prefer actual tabs because I think a tab is a tab in every piece of software and it just kind of works. It means the same thing. If you use spaces, then some programs will use 4 spaces for a tab and others will use 5 spaces and 6 spaces, and it gets, in my opinion, kind of confusing. But I want you to kind of try different things and learn for yourself, because what's comfortable for me might not be comfortable for you. So it's all kind of, once again, either preference or a rule that a studio follows. So that's kind of up to you to find out which one it is. Interestingly enough, inside of Maya, I'm not sure why they did this, but if I tab the first time and say, let's say int test1, hit enter, and it's nice enough to actually remember that you had a indentation up top, and when you go to new line, it keeps an indentation. But then when I do another indentation, int test2 equals 2, and I keep going, test3 equals 3. Is it actually working correctly? I thought that there were times that, sometimes it would use 4 spaces for a tab and sometimes it was a different number, but I can't replicate it right now. Just be aware of it, that sometimes you'll notice that the tabbing is a little bit off. So I can't replicate it right now, but just be aware of that. The other thing that's kind of cool is if you have a block of text, let's say you're writing some kind of complicated program or script, and you want to include a little, bit of information at the top. I already showed you how to comment with the // slash. Let's say this is a script that selects all meshes. It will not select NURBS objects, right? And you can say to run the script, whatever, hit enter or something like that. I'm just kind of writing a block of text. So as you can see, I'm commenting each line by doing the double forward slash. But if you want, you can use another type of commenting, which is forward slash star in the beginning and then a star forward slash at the end. And you can see that the forward slash star tells Mel that like the following lines are going to be all comment, and then at the end you say I'm ending my comment by doing star forward slash. So if I remove that, yeah, this becomes yellow. It now thinks that my ASDF line is part of the comment. So just be aware that sometimes if you have 10 lines of text and you want to quickly make it a comment, you just do this kind of block comment with a forward slash star and a star ended with a star backslash. And then if you have, let's say you have some kind of pretended this is code and you have another comment, you can do this again. Oops. Okay, so once again I'm doing comment, or you can go back to the double slash comment. So even though this is yellow and this is red, they're both considered comments. So yeah, just a couple of interesting tidbits about different ways of scripting, different ways of creating variables, and a new way to add comments to your script. And definitely add a lot of comments. They will help you. They'll get you out of some rough situations where either you're looking at somebody else's code or your own code and things all of a sudden don't make sense. And those comments will save your life. Thanks again for joining, and I hope to see you soon.